Sorry, guys. Throwback was trying to leave, and he accidentally ended the broadcast. All right. So, yeah. Okay. So, all right. So, hopefully people will come back in here. But, yeah. So, I mean, there's only one name left to talk about, and that is Jackson Riker. Jackson Riker. What is there to say about him? Part of the Forgotten Sons, which did anybody really care for the Forgotten Sons? Yeah, sorry. Throwback accidentally ended the broadcast instead of just leaving. He hit the wrong button, and he was like, "Oh, you can go ahead and restart it." Well, no, I can't. I just had to create a new one, so I just created a new one real quick. So you can blame him. But yeah, did anybody like the Forgotten Sons? I think the joke. I think the joke literally was the Forgotten Sons are just forgotten. They get called up last year, and there's one tag match with Wesley Blake and Steve Cutler, and and Riker wasn't even a part of it. And then what happens? You got the protest. It's fine, Throwback. I'm just teasing you. It's all good. You've got the protests going on, and Jackson Riker tweets out support for Trump and his handling of the situation, which did not go over well in that locker room whatsoever, and I believe I'm pretty sure this has been confirmed. Is pretty much the reason why all the Forgotten Sons got called up on TV got pulled off of TV after they had just gotten called up. And I mean, Wesley Blake had been in NXT for a while now and been trying to get to the main roster. He finally gets a shot on the main roster, and then his tag team partner, just without thinking, says something and just causes the whole thing to just collapse. And then Blake and Cutler get released, and Jackson Riker keeps going. And he's somebody who, honestly, it's impressive to just, oh yeah, I'll put this banner up for you real quick. Boom. There you go. Because, yes, absolutely. Cancer is a horrible thing. My grandpa actually, he had he had prostate cancer several years ago, and actually has a very slow moving form of, I believe, kidney cancer right now. So, but for Jackson Riker, it's impressive he lasted as long as he did, considering everything, considering the heat that he had backstage. It is impressive at how long he was able to stay there. He then formed a tag team with Elias, which didn't really do much, and then that ended with a what was it called? Symphony of Destruction match. I think I got that name right. A Symphony of Destruction match with Elias. Jackson Riker wins the match, and then it's just gone from TV. He wins it, and he's gone from TV. And look, this is not there's going to be no celebrating of people losing their jobs, because everybody is human. Every one of these people has now lost their income, their livelihood. And for some of the people like Tegan and Shane Thorne now have visa issues that they've got to worry about, on top of trying to be like, what am I going to do for money and job? And oh, okay, gotcha. Yes, for sure. Um, you know, so there's so there people have got all sorts of issues. Um, but I will say, out of all of the releases, Riker is the one I feel the least bad about, I guess you could say. Um, and separately from separately from his viewpoints on things, he just wasn't a good wrestler. He wasn't good. I mean, the Symphony of Destruction match was real bad. It was boring. I mean, you have a match that's essentially a hardcore match with weapons, and you got all these cool different weapons, and you can't figure out a good way to utilize them. Elias did his best. He certainly tried, but Riker just, and anytime he was doing a tag match with Elias, you go, oh yeah, he's the stinker of the joint. And Sean Ross Sapp said it best last night. He didn't get over anywhere he was. He never got over anywhere that he was employed. He was. Let me pull up and see where else he was. So yeah, he wasn't over on the Indies. He wasn't over in TNA. Oh, he was part of Immortal. That tells you all that you need to know about that. He didn't get over. He managed to get over sort of in NXT as part of the Forgotten Sons. Although I would argue that Forgotten Sons got over in spite of Riker, not because of Riker. I think Forgotten Sons got over because of Blake and Cutler. And he's not going to be over wherever he goes next, which, let's be honest, probably NWA. Actually, somebody last night super chatted this into Fightful, and I thought this was good. The National Wrestling Alliance is the only NWA Jackson Riker will associate with, which is very true. You know what? He can form a tag team with Tyrus, and they can call themselves the Payable on Service or something like that, or POS. You can put 2 and 2 together with what else that could stand for. So yeah, Riker, I don't feel nearly as bad for him losing his job as others. It's still unfortunate that he lost his job, but he's not going to be somebody I'm going to miss on TV. Yeah, man, the idea of budget cuts is such a dumb excuse for this. I mean, think back to the promo CM Punk cut a decade ago, leading into his Money in the Bank match with John Cena. Not the pipe bomb one. It's the one where I think it was for their contract signing, where he flat out calls John Laurinaitis gutless and says, "Do you personally call them and say these things? And say how sorry it is, or do you just say, 'Sorry, kid, budget cuts. Best luck on your future endeavors.'" 10 years ago, Punk cut that promo. And 10 years later, same reason, same guy at the top. Same wish you the best on your future endeavors. After once again posting a record profit quarter. And just in case you're one of those bozos that says, "It's a business, cuts happen," or "cuts happen in sports all the time," the kind of cuts that happen in sports are people who have had the chance to try and perform and aren't able to do it, or there's a pay cap. They're trying to make the pay cap. This is a group of people who were never really given the chance to shine, or certainly weren't making a whole lot of money. Like, you cannot tell me in a time of record profits that all of these people was like, oh, we need to get another 200, 300,000 released for whatever. We got to cut some people. It is ineptitude of the highest magnitude. And there's a reason why, so many people cannot stand what this company does. They cannot stand what this company stands for, because what they say they stand for, nobody believes. Nobody who's a rational, decent human being actually believes it. A lot of these people, the people who deserved to be treated better, there's no doubt in my mind they are going to be treated. They're going to be treated better somewhere else. They're going to be fine. John Morrison is going to get signed somewhere, and he is going to continue to show that he can still go and perform. Isaiah Swerve Scott, he's going to show up somewhere, and he's going to be a top talent. Again, AEW should be like calling him up immediately and being like, hey, when are you free? When's your no compete up? Let's get you in here. Especially because of the criticism that AEW has gotten for the lack of diversity at the top of their card. And yes, they just hired Jay Lethal, but Jay Lethal comes with a whole host of other issues. Swerve Scott doesn't come with those issues whatsoever. You just get a fantastic, talented wrestler who is a joy to watch and would be in a huge asset to add to your roster. Tegan Knox is going to get signed somewhere. She's only 27. She's way too good at this. There's no doubt in my mind she can show up anywhere. And it also sucks too, because just yesterday, Dakota Kai tweeted out a picture. It was a picture of, actually, let me see if I can find it real quick, because this was actually a really good picture. Let's see here. But it's a picture of her and Candice LeRae and Tegan Knox. Here it is. Let me get this up. Let me get this up here real quick. All right. Boom. This one. Okay. So it's this picture, all three of them in NXT. And then the next picture, if I get my internet to work. There we go. Oh, shoot. Don't do that. The three of them once again. And I presume that's Candice's house, because I see the Mickey stuff there. Candice, several months pregnant. Dakota in a feud with Raquel Gonzalez on NXT, and here's Tegan, who at this point is probably just going, when am I going to get used on TV again? Just yesterday, these pictures were tweeted out. Tegan's going to be fine. She's going to be fine. She's going to do fine. She's going to be just fine wherever she goes. Drake Maverick, Rockstar Spud, has shown over the last several years whatever he's given, he will turn it into gold, and he will make it work. His stuff with the 24/7 title was some of the best stuff that was some of the best work that title got. And then his tag team with Killian Dane, Big Damo, gold. I have no doubt that the people in this list that got released, who are most deserving to get all the good luck in the world, all the praise in the world, I have no doubt they're going to get it, and they're going to get it somewhere else. Because maybe they all dreamed of being WWE superstars, but as Drake Maverick in his video yesterday said, really what they dreamed of being was a professional wrestler. You can't get fired from being a professional wrestler. They're going to get booked somewhere. And they are going to show everyone why WWE made such a huge mistake letting them go. And you know what? There is a part of me that thinks, and I'm certainly not alone in this, if you look at so many of these cuts recently, they're all cuts of people that came up in Triple H's NXT. It does make you wonder, is Vince trying to send a message to Triple H, of some kind? What that message could be, that's open for interpretation. But at this point, there's a good part of me that wonders, what if Triple H was just to say, screw it all, and he leaves WWE, and he starts his own promotion? Because think about it. The amount of talent on the free agent market now and what's going to be available in the next 90 days is insane. Because you've still got cuts from earlier this year. You've got the cuts not only from yesterday, from this latest round, the cuts from a couple of weeks ago. I think there was more cuts like a month or two before that. And plus you've got all these ROH people that are going to be available real soon, if not already, because some of them definitely have already gotten out of their contract, like Jay Lethal, and Trish Adora was at the Dynamite taping on Wednesday. And I think she actually filmed a dark match before the show. What if Triple H was to go, you know what? I'll start my own promotion. It'll be in the spirit of the classic NXT, the NXT that we all loved. And, there's no doubt in my mind he could walk into a group of investors and get them to invest in a company with him. Or maybe he's got enough money, he just does it himself. I don't know how deep his pockets are. I have no idea. His wife just lost her entire staff a few weeks ago. So, not that I think she would ever leave, but Triple H may be seeing writing on the wall for him and going, I'll leave now while I can still do something. I don't know how likely that is. He's still recovering from his heart procedure a few months ago. So maybe nothing will happen there, but I would certainly not be opposed if Triple H decided to start his own promotion. Because I think there's definitely some issues with some of the booking that NXT had in the last few years before 2.0. There had definitely been some things, but I think those are things that he could fix and tweak and get a handle on. And part of the problem too is also, he could never really know when he was going to be, when some of his people, some of his kids were going to get taken away from him and called up to the main roster. Then he'd have to start all over again with his own promotion. He wouldn't have to do that. He could truly do, long-term storytelling. And Triple H definitely has a good mind for this business. For a guy who is himself in his 50s, he's got a much a much better grasp of what's going on in the wrestling landscape than his father-in-law certainly does. Um, because his father-in-law, he doesn't like pro wrestling. He's sports entertainment. Triple H is a pro wrestler. He's been doing sports entertainment for a long time, but he loves the business. He truly loves the business. He built NXT. Basically, he rebuilt it from what it had been as just simply a stupid reality show thing, and rebuilt it into really the ultimate super indie, which had that indie feel and and indie level of talent, and indie and level incredible matches with the production of a major company and the marketing capability of a major company. Um, that is something, it's something that I kind of think, in a sense, AEW wanted to emulate, along with Ring of Honor and stuff, because obviously they were all from ROH. Um, but I mean, there was a time when honestly the hottest promotion, the promotion with the most buzz, was actually NXT. Wasn't New Japan, it wasn't Ring of Honor, wasn't WWE main roster, it was NXT. And I remember 2018, there, on the same night, Takeover New Orleans and Ring of Honor Supercard. And it's one of the things where it's like, no matter which show you watched or you went to, you were going to get a great show with great matches and great wrestling on it. And just imagine what Triple H could do if he didn't have his hands tied at all, if he didn't have to constantly worry about his guys being taken away from him and called up any minute. There's actually a large part of me that would kind of like to see that happen, because even Tony Khan had said that he thought there was a room for a third major promotion on the level of an AEW, because it's definitely just not Impact. It's not Ring of Honor. New Japan seems to have slowed their expansion into North America, and there's MLW and there's GCW, which GCW certainly has got a lot of buzz, but they don't have they're not at the level of an AEW or of NXT in its prime. So what a world that would be if we got Triple H starting his own promotion and stuff, because then all these people that keep getting cut from WWE, they'd have a place to go, a place where they not only they knew who was running it, but that they were going to be treated well. Maybe someday that will happen. Makes you wonder with these budget cuts how close a sale of WWE, how close that really is, how far away that really is. That's certainly been the rumor. Nick Khan, he's getting WWE ready for a sale. Well, maybe in 3 or 4 years, we'll see whether or not that's actually what he was doing. But I mean, because these cuts, as budget cuts, make no sense. They make no sense. So support indie wrestling, support other wrestlers, support other wrestling promotions, because pretty much, with the exception of, let's say, NWA and Women of Wrestling, because of their questionable stuff, pretty much every other wrestling promotion is far more worthy of your fandom, of your viewing, of your watching, of your support than WWE. That's beside the bad creative end of WWE, just as far as business practices, because no matter what we may think of any of the releases that have happened in the last several months, nobody should be having to lose their job like this, especially this close to the holidays. I mean, a week before Thanksgiving, people are given their pink slips. You know, the people who, you know, if any of these people, if they only have 30-day non-competes, it's running out like less than a week before Christmas. Less than a week. They don't care. WWE, they don't care how close it is to Christmas. They don't care that there's people that have gotten released that still have, you know, spouses or partners that are still employed. I mean, when Taya Valkyrie got released, her husband, John Morrison, he was in the UK on tour. So he couldn't even be there for her to support her through all this. They didn't care. You know, maybe him being on tour was the only reason he didn't get released that day as well, because he was already over there. They don't care. You know, it doesn't matter what these people's, what's going on in their lives and all this stuff. They don't care. All they look at are numbers. And you got to think too, there's people with contracts coming up. Kevin Owens, Johnny Gargano, Kyle O'Reilly. How likely do you think they are to re-sign with WWE, knowing their job could be lost at any point in time? If any of them were to re-sign with WWE without having a no-cut clause in a contract that was foolproof, ironclad, no-cut clause. If any of them were to re-sign with WWE without it, they would be such fools. Such fools. I don't think any of them are fools. I don't think any of them are. I think, Kevin Owens has looked very much like he's just like, I'm ready to be done. I'm ready to be done with all this. So, and that's just because of his creative and his booking and things. The fact that his job might not be secure, I don't see any reason for him to resign. I think Kyle O'Reilly, I think he's looking at what Cole and Fish are doing over at AEW. He's going, I want to be over there. I don't see him resigning. Gargano, who knows? Because he does have a pregnant wife who is still, employed by WWE. She still has a contract. I don't know when her contract expires. But so maybe Gargano resigns. I think out of all of them, I think he's the most likely. But again, is he going to want to resign after seeing so many people, so many of his friends and coworkers, lose their jobs without a care, with no thought? Are they, is that something that he's going to feel comfortable with? I can't answer for him. I don't know what his thinking or motivation is, but I'd be surprised with him as well. And that's the thing that WWE they don't think about. They don't think about the fact that there are people whose contracts are coming up, and you want to entice them to stay. And you're going around and you're cutting people. What assurance are you giving them that they're not next? That they're not going to have their jobs get cut at some point down the line? I mean, Adam Cole walked into a meeting, during SmackDown to meet with Vince McMahon. Comes out of the meeting and his friend Bobby Fish is fired. You think that didn't play some sort of factor into Cole deciding not to re-sign with WWE to go to AEW? Because if you think it didn't, think again. Again, we don't have confirmation of this, but I'd be shocked if that didn't play some sort of a factor, some part of a role. He's never spoken about it, but I would be genuinely shocked if that didn't weigh into his mind in some way. But WWE, well, we don't need all these young people. We can just bring in The Rock and Brock Lesnar and John Cena and Goldberg and all these various legends, Undertaker and Kane, and we can trot all these people out and and have and have them show up and can boost ratings and whatnot. But they're all getting older. They're not, Undertaker's finally retired. Kane's busy being mayor. John Cena's making movies, and even when he did come back, they had him back for SummerSlam. They had him in the building doing dark matches instead of actually on the show. They couldn't even figure out how to use John Cena correctly. You don't have John Cena in the building and not put him on the show and just have him working dark matches. You don't do that. They are desperately hoping to get Rock to show up for WrestleMania, for potentially a big match with Roman Reigns. What's going to happen in 5 years? They're so not forward thinking with any of this stuff. That's very short term, knee jerk reaction. There's no long term thoughts. I mean, we've known about that for a while with their booking, because they can't book. They can't book a week ahead. I mean, they'll walk into the arena for a Monday Night Raw, and it can be 2-3 hours before the show, and the script's getting torn up and they're starting again. They started Raws without a finished script for the show. They can't do any kind of long-term booking, so they certainly can't do any kind of long-term thinking when it comes to all this stuff. It's just very annoying, and it's very frustrating, because how is anybody supposed to get invested in anything that WWE is doing? Wins and credit to Kate Hensler, because she said this very well on the special edition of Sour Graps she did with Alex Pulaski last night on Fightful Select. Wins and losses don't matter in WWE, so I'm not invested in who wins and who loses. The titles don't get treated well at all, unless you're Roman Reigns. You're and maybe the WWE champion. Your title doesn't get treated well. We've seen that with tag titles. We've seen that with the women's tag titles. We've seen that with the U.S. and Intercontinental titles. We've even seen it with the women's titles. So, not caring about wins and losses, not caring about titles, not caring about the story involved, because most of the time, the storylines in WWE are not good. Like, the best booked storyline right now probably is Naomi and Sonya Deville. And before that, it was Roman. And before that, it was Edge and Randy Orton from last year. WWE can only book one good storyline at a time. Maybe. So, it's not wins and losses. It's not titles. It's not stories. And clearly, it's not the talent, because they either release those talent that people get attached to, or they release talent before people can even try to get attached to them. So why bother watching the show and trying to get invested in some of this talent if we don't know if they're even going to be there next week? I mean, what was her name? See, now I'm forgetting her name. B-Fab, that's her name. When B-Fab got cut, she got cut on a Thursday. The very next Friday, Hit Row had to go out and cut a promo on SmackDown without her. And they're supposed to feel good about that? They're supposed to just act like nothing happened? What reason did any of the audience members have to give for caring? And now it's like, well, what was the point of even trying to get into Hit Row? Because they're all gone. What was the point of getting into Tegan Knox and her being part of a tag team with Shotzi, which, by the way, broke up the team that Shotzi had with Ember Moon? Because remember, Shotzi was tag champions with Ember Moon down in NXT, and then Shotzi gets called up, and not Ember, and Tegan gets called up, and they form a tag team, beat the tag champions 3 times, never get a title shot, then they get split. What's the point of getting invested in that team if they just got split after a couple of months? And now Tegan's gone. There's no thinking. There's no logic in the WWE cuts. It really just seems random, or at the very least, directly pointed at Triple H's NXT, at the NXT of old, the old guard of NXT, which again makes you think how much, how much faith would Owens and Gargano and O'Reilly really have, because they're all part of that old guard. Owens, has been on the main roster long enough where maybe he'd be okay, but then again, they cut Braun Strowman. They cut Nia Jax. They cut Bray Wyatt, who is a merch seller. And roster members were telling Sean, if they cut Bray, who sells merch, and they decided to cut him, how safe are any of us? And and then Gargano and O'Reilly, they're part of the last of the old guard of what NXT was. Like, I hate to say it, but if they re-sign, I think it's very possible they could be some of the next cuts. The only maybe the only reason they haven't gotten cut yet is because they've got new contracts being offered to them, and it would seem weird to cut somebody when you got a contract offer. I don't know, but I wouldn't have any faith in re-signing. Not the way this place is going, and especially when you look at how well these people that have gotten released, how well they've been doing. Deonna Purrazzo is now perhaps the best knockouts champion that Impact has ever seen. Cardona is killing it in GCW, doing stuff on Impact, which is kind of whatever, but his GCW stuff is incredible. The former Rusev, Miro, just had a pay-per-view match with Bryan Danielson. That was a great match, and that's after he had an incredible run as TNT champion. There's more that I can name of people that have gotten released and have ended up doing very well. Very well. So if I was these guys, I'd be like, I'll take my chances out there, because I got no faith in what's going on here, and out there I'd have a lot easier time. And not to mention, they could do outside appearances for stuff. They could do, Twitch or get their own sponsorships or whatever. So much more freedom than what they have in WWE. Which reminds me, and this is be the last thing I bring up, and then I will end this, because I do need to get some sleep today. In case you guys haven't seen, Xavier Woods found out about the releases on the air on G4. Like, they were doing a thing where they were the camera was backing up, and you couldn't really hear anything because there was just music going, and the mics there and and the mics there were muted, and it's the same thing where it's like, like they were going to be going away to, to something, and Xavier, he's got his phone, he's looking at his phone, he's sitting on the couch, and suddenly he like sits up a little bit and then just stands up and just starts to walk away, and you see Kevin Venom Pereira, who's the host of Attack of the Show, kind of like looks at him, and everybody else is just kind of like, what's going on? And then they come back, and then Woods goes to sit down next to a Pereira, and and Kevin's like, "You okay? Is everything good?" And Woods just goes, "Yeah, no, I'm fine. My work is just on fire right now." And they're like, "Is everything all right? Do you want to talk about it?" And he goes, "No, not really. Probably shouldn't." He found out on the air that coworkers, probably some friends, gone on the air, and he had to just carry on. Reminds me of when Adam Cole, when he was streaming on his Twitch, and he got the news that Tyler Breeze had gotten released, and he found out live on the air as he's streaming. Nobody should have to be finding out that the friends have gotten cut like that when they're live and having to process and deal with this emotions while putting on a front. And let's not forget, Woods, he's not even getting any money for this G4 thing. It's all going towards his WWE downside, as Fightful Select reported. So he's showing up at G4 because just pure and not getting any extra money purely because he loves it so much. And now he's there, he's hosting, he's doing his job there, he's having a great time, and then he suddenly finds out that now his work is on fire because more of his friends have gotten released. And there's a pay-per-view this weekend. How demoralized do you think that locker room is going to be Sunday? How demoralized do you think the SmackDown locker room is going to be tonight? And then the entire locker room Sunday night. Again, before pay-per-view, one of the big four, theoretically. Because lately they seem to treat Money in the Bank as more of a big four pay-per-view than Survivor Series. Because this is one of the worst WWE pay-per-view builds I've ever seen. I can't honestly think of a worse one. And now you've got a locker room that has a pay-per-view on Sunday where the idea is brand supremacy and fighting for the pride of your brand. And it makes me wonder how many of them are even proud of the company they work for right now, let alone the brand. It's got to be demoralizing. And it's got to be a thing where I almost wonder if it's a thing where like they're kind of like walking around backstage on eggshells, trying not to get noticed, by Johnny Ace, so that he goes, "Oh, hey, you there? Hey, budget cuts, pal. Gotta go." I mean, if I was there, I'd be very nervous about ruffling any feathers or even about doing anything. That's how nervous I'd be for my job. And you shouldn't have that. You should be able to speak up and say your mind. And there's, and especially with reports of people that have gotten released and then all of a sudden, oh no, they were hard to work with. They were hard to deal with. When being hard to deal with is just saying, hey, this creative is real bad. I don't like this. And the idea of going, well, if you don't like it, then don't do it. It's like, that's not how this works. Because then you get taken off TV. You're given, you're given, the complex of a pariah, basically, where it's like, oh, they're hard to work with. And then I would say the odds of you getting released go up substantially, because you're like, well, you're not easy to work with. We don't want to deal with you anymore. All because you say, this is really stupid. Why are we doing this? I'd be so nervous about saying anything. So I imagine there's a lot more people now, and they are looking. It's like, when is my contract up? How much more of this do I have to go through? And counting down the days. I would be. Well, I've been going for about an hour, split between two. So if you missed the first part of this, it's the earlier video. It just says WWE releases again because had a little snafu at the end of there, so I had to start a whole new thing and restart it. But yeah, so support indie wrestling, guys. Support all these wrestlers. Support other wrestling promotions that are much more much more worthy of your time and your energy and your support and your viewership and your money. You know, because there's so many others. You know, my heart goes out to everybody that's gotten released and to the people that are left, because it cannot be easy being there right now. Cannot be easy. We'll be back. Actually, I don't know if we're gonna do. We normally do shows on Thursdays. I don't know if we're gonna do one this week because of the Thanksgiving holiday in the U.S. Maybe we'll do something on another day. I have to talk to Throwback about that and see. So to end this, I'll use Throwback's favorite quote: "Do a good deed, pay it forward." If you want to donate down there, www.cancer.org. I know this has been a particularly tough week for Throwback. He lost his mother 2 years ago this week to cancer. Cancer affects all of us in some way, whether it's directly something we've gone through or indirectly because somebody we know, somebody we loved, a friend, even an acquaintance has had to deal with it and suffer through it. And if you are mentally struggling with anything, if you're dealing with with depression, talk to somebody, get help. There's no shame in doing that. There's no shame in getting the help that's needed. I did it. I got counseling when I got divorced because I had a lot of pent up stuff about it. So talk to somebody, get help. Please take care of yourselves. So for the Wicked Crazy Crew, I am Anakin JMT. And to quote Alex Pulowski, today, everything sucks.